Hello and welcome to Everyday Lessons Every Day. I'm David McBee. Just a few short years ago, my family walked on eggshells around me because I was so filled with anxiety and anger. I knew I had to make a change before I lost them, and that's when I turned to self-improvement books to work on myself and to improve my relationships. After several months of reading every day and applying the lessons I learned, I was able to go from grumpy to grateful. It was this journey that inspired me to write my book, Everyday Lessons Every Day. Today I continue my journey. I still read regularly, and I share those lessons here on the podcast. I also invite everyday people to share their everyday lessons and how those lessons are changing their lives for the better. This week, it's just me. This is episode 54. The monster showed up, and I made my daughter cry. I was asked to do an interview last week on the radio. The host saw my recent LinkedIn posts about my children's book, DJ's Off-Road Adventures, and thought it would be fun for me to talk about how the book was written. Of course, I was more than a little thrilled to be asked, and I was eager to tell folks about the book. So we chatted about the trip to Moab and my panic attack that inspired the book. She asked me how I overcame my fears. We talked about the concept of fooling your brain into thinking that the physical results of anxiety, like increased heart rate and heavy breathing, are very similar to the feelings one has when they're excited. Then we talked about the new DJ book, Better Together, and how it was inspired by true events on the trail where my fellow off-roaders helped each other overcome some obstacles. Then she surprised me, and she asked about everyday lessons every day, which I was, of course, excited to talk about, but I hadn't really planned on. I assumed the whole interview would be about the children's book series, so I was caught a little off guard. But it was fine. I was happy to tell her how I had come from a dark place with anger and temper issues, and how I had made a decision to embrace personal growth, and how I had gone from grumpy to grateful in the process. It all started to sound a little too happy ending. And that's something I really hate about a lot of self-help authors and speakers. They make it seem like they've figured it all out, and I never really want that to be the impression that I give my readers and listeners. So in the same breath that I said I had grown and saved the relationships with my family, I confessed that the monster still comes out every now and then. I was thinking about the times I've gotten mad or lost my temper over the past several months. It's actually much fewer and far between incidents, and even when I do stumble, at least it's not as bad as it used to be. That was Friday. Today is Monday, and holy hell, the monster made a serious appearance this morning. I kind of lost my mind for a bit, and I think it's important that I talk about what happened. This story isn't going to paint me in a very good light, but it's real. And I think that's what people appreciate about my book and my podcast. I don't sugarcoat or make false promises. I just tell my stories so that people can relate. And if you've ever lost your temper, maybe you'll relate to this one. Okay, let me set the scene. Over the weekend, my lovely daughter had some allergy issues. She had a slight sore throat and a runny nose. She went through, 9, 10, 11, a billion tissues. Since we were playing outdoors all weekend, we assumed it was the dust and all the things that nature does in the fall that caused her issues. But when we got home and she spent more time indoors, in the air conditioning, her allergies didn't get much better. In fact, she was up most of the night dealing with her runny nose, and she woke up this morning feeling terrible. Since Emily is a teacher and her students are too young for vaccinations, we're hyper concerned about COVID exposure. Zoe's symptoms not resolving themselves by Monday morning put my wife on high alert, and it was decided that Zoe should get a rapid test before going to school just to be sure. Now Zoe and Emily are starting to feel stressed and anxious. Meanwhile, I'm 100% certain she doesn't have COVID, and in fact, I can't help but think everyone is overreacting. I start getting annoyed that they are in a bad mood based on the slim chance that she might have COVID. This was the first sign of the monster. I wasn't seeing things from their points of view. I wasn't even trying to. I was just getting irritated that they were making a big deal out of nothing. I didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking, oh my God, can we just relax? It's a runny nose. It's allergy season. She doesn't have COVID. Meanwhile, the other voice in my head, the one that has read a million self-improvement books, is saying, don't you dare say that out loud. You'll just make them feel bad. You keep that to yourself. Besides, there's a chance you could be wrong. You don't know. What I should have been thinking was, my poor girls are so stressed right now. Be the husband and father they need. But that guy was nowhere to be found. In fact, the monster was about to drive that better version of me into the deep, dark recesses of my brain. So at this point, it's too early in the morning to go to urgent care. My head isn't ready for work, so I start picking up the house. Which is a huge mistake because now I'm getting irritated by the dirty dishes and all the crap that found its way to the kitchen over the weekend. Old mail, empty boxes, keys, cups, dried ketchup on the counter. I start filling the dishwasher and it's nearly full enough to run, but not quite. I know there are some dirty dishes upstairs, so I ask Zoe to bring them down. She does, but she doesn't bring them to the sink, opting instead to set them on the dining room table and then flop down on the couch and get on her phone. This also irritates me because now I'm thinking that teenagers are lazy, and why couldn't she just walk another 12 feet and just put the cups in the dishwasher without me having to ask? Of course, she's got other things on her mind at this point, but like I said, I'm not even trying to see things from her point of view. So I go to get the cups, and I accidentally knock the stack over. And that's when I discovered that the top cup was full of old Kool-Aid. It goes everywhere, on a package, on some papers that we recently had notarized, and all over the fabric of one of our brand new kitchen chairs. I lost my mind. I literally started screaming obscenities as loud as I could. F word this, F word that, F word, F word, F word. I ran into the kitchen for paper towels, and when I got back to start cleaning up, I see Zoe just sitting there staring at me. I scream at her at the top of my lungs, "Are you just gonna sit there? Are you gonna effing help me?" So she stands up, grabs some paper towels, and starts to help, but now she's crying her eyes out. I should feel terrible, but I've lost my freaking mind. The monster is saying that she should cry, that she was too lazy to put the dishes away, and that she was stupid to leave Kool-Aid in a stack of cups. Maybe she'll really learn her lesson this time. Told you it wouldn't paint me in a very good light. Her tears are enough to stop me cussing at her, but I'm still furious as I'm spraying shout on the chair, hoping that it doesn't dry with big pink stains all over it. We finally get the mess cleaned up, and it's time to go to the clinic for the COVID test. I walk to the car, not saying a word to her. She follows, climbs in, and gets on her phone. We don't talk to each other the whole way there. When we arrive, we have to wait outside for the nurse, and I finally break the silence, asking, "Isn't there something you want to say to me?" And she responds, "I'm sorry about the Kool-Aid." "That's it?" I ask. And she says, "I don't really think I'm the one who owes the bigger apology, Dad." What? Now she's implying that I did something wrong. I think my actions were 100% justified and that I had every right to be angry because it was all her fault. So I say, "You think I owe you an apology after you were too lazy to put the dishes away and you left Kool-Aid in a stack of cups? Who does that?" To which she responds, "I'm sorry I didn't put the dishes away, but I've got a lot on my mind this morning." And then she starts sobbing. "If this COVID test comes back positive, I can't go to homecoming, and I'll miss 2 weeks of marching band competitions." In my brain, the monster says, "It's allergies, damn it. You don't have COVID." But I don't say that out loud. Instead, I tell the monster to shut up. "You don't know that. She probably doesn't have COVID, but we don't know for sure. She's sitting there worried that she's going to miss homecoming and nearly half of marching band season, and you're yelling about Kool-Aid? You're worried about some notarized papers being pink or stains on a chair? Get it together, man. Your daughter is in distress about things that are important, and you're being a selfish asshole. And that was it. I took a deep breath and I sent the monster back to wherever it is he hides most of the time. I shook my head and told Zoe how sorry I was. God bless her, she immediately forgave me, and it was clearer than ever that she was thinking about things far beyond the spill and the mess and even her fight with me. She was picturing what her life would look like over the next 2 weeks if she had COVID. Now, I can only imagine what was going through her mind, but I'd guess that she was thinking about all her girlfriends dressed up and taking pictures for the dance while she sat alone in her room. Or the marching band. She's the drum major, and she would be letting everyone down, not to mention how much fun she would miss out on. But with the monster gone, I was able to focus and see things from her point of view. I apologized again, and then started to try and reassure her that she was going to be fine. I knew I couldn't easily fix what I had broken, but I was at least going to try and be the better version of myself going forward. We finally got called in. She took the test and we waited. Now the tension between us was diminishing, and the tension of waiting for the test results was taking the front seat. I did what I could to comfort her, pointing out that she didn't have any COVID symptoms, reminding her that she was vaccinated and healthy and that good things happened to our family. Really, I was powerless at this point. I'd lost all credibility by losing my temper and screaming like a madman. There wasn't much more to do except sit and wait. 30 minutes later, the doctor came in, told her she had tested negative, and he gave her some advice about a saline nasal wash and some chicken noodle soup. We hopped in the car, went to CVS, and then headed home. I made her some ramen noodles, and she went to her room to sneak in a brief nap before heading back to school. I went to work, got caught up on email, attended a Monday morning meeting via Zoom, and then started going through my to-do list. And when I got to a place I felt like I could stop, I wrote this podcast. Now, Zoe is feeling better physically, and like I said, she forgave me when I apologized. But I can't help but think that events like this have a longer lasting impact on her. So I hope, beyond hope, that this podcast, this confession to the world, if you will serve as the most sincere apology that I could ever give her. This week, I'm writing POV on my wrist to act as a reminder that I should try and see the other person's point of view. Had I done that in the first place, none of this morning's events would have even happened. I've learned a valuable lesson, and I hope that you can learn from my mistake. Let me know what happens when you implement this lesson by reaching out to me at everydaylessonseveryday.com. You can purchase my book while you're there or learn more about hiring me to speak about personal improvement at your upcoming event, if you'll even have me. If you like the stories brought to you by Everyday Lessons Every Day, please consider writing a review, and also please share this podcast with your friends. Let's see if together we can make the world a better place. I'll see you next time. Now go out there and do something awesome.